Piyush is currently the CEO of Leadership R Us Private Limited, which provides human resource consulting for small and medium enterprises. Piyush is passionate about delivering leadership and behavioral skills trainings and offers more than 85 training topics. Prior to this, he was with American Express as the Global Director for Talent Management, responsible for developing employees in 23 countries across 4 continents. He provides executive coaching to senior leaders to steer through turbulent times successfully. Please help me welcome Piyush Ahuja. Before going into the talk, why don't you tell us something about a movie that you find intimidating?
Sure. So there is this movie that we might have heard, and it was at the time when the Italian mafia was at its peak, right? And there's this movie called The Godfather. Anybody heard of it? Wow, everybody did. And I'm Al Pacino, right? And I have my gun in my head, and I'm going to make that comment on Aditya. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Piyush Ahuja, build your personal brand. Build your personal brand, Piyush Ahuja.
Okay. So thank you everyone for having me over our chair, and I'm sorry I'm making you actually do a lot of work with regards to the camera. I understand I can't, but I just like to always get closer to my audience so that they can see me and I can see them and I can make an eye contact with everybody, right? We're going to talk about an important skill we all need to master, and it's a journey. It's not a destination, which is about building our
Personal brand.
super. So, for us to understand the concept of the personal brand, let's first start with our easy to comprehend and something that we have all observed is about organizational brands, right? Tell me any organizational brand that you remember for anything, any purpose, any goods, service, anything that you remember. Tell me any brand that you remember. Google. Why is it that you remember Google? For what purpose? Anything and everything you can? In one place. But you can only search for it. You can't essentially achieve it.
I can go buy it also.
Sure. So it's one of the first steps for us to progress on our eventual journey to achieve a goal. And that's the first step we take. And the first brand that comes to our mind is Google, right? Great. Which other brand? Apple. What happens with Apple? What's the brand that we expect from Apple? Quality. It's reliable. Great. So all of this should lead us to understand what's a brand then? It's a statement, okay?
It's an association with some thing of value.
It's an association with regards to some value that you're going to get. It's about saying that there is something that we're going to get out of the brand. But I
It's an identity.
credibility, okay?
It's an identity.
It's an identity. And an identity can be both positive and negative as well, because we're going to talk about 2 kind of brands existing as well. So it's an identity, it's something which is there, which is all of you said, but tell me one thing. If I was to go and search something on Google and the results were 0, doesn't exist, there's nothing which is even closely matching to that. Or Apple, the product doesn't work, it malfunctions. What happened in that case?
Selective branding of their product.
Sorry?
Selective branding of their product.
Sure, which means that you had an expectation from the brand, right? And the expectation was not met, which means it was a failure. So which means we all can agree that a brand is something like a promise, right? So it's a brand has a promise that if you take this, you would expect this result in Google or in Apple. That you do this, you would expect certain results. Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to get the same thing and I'm going to ask you, does Amitabh Bachchan have a brand?
Yes.
What do we expect from his brand? What do we expect from him? good acting, which means entertaining, right? It just takes us into a different world, and we feel ourselves affiliated to what he's trying to do or trying to communicate to us in the act that he performs. That's a brand promise. Does Rakhi Sawant have a brand? Right? So what's the brand in that case? I'm sorry, a little bit controversial, but she does have a brand. Right? Now, let's take another example, and we're going to move and shift gears as well. So, does Mahatma Gandhi have a brand?
Yes.
He has a brand. So does Adolf Hitler. They both have a brand. Which one is the one which people want to remember?
Gandhi.
Both? But for what purpose? Which means when we are trying to build a brand, we have a choice. We have a choice that do we want to be remembered for what is Mahatma Gandhi, or do we want to be remembered for Adolf Hitler? That choice we make from the time we start working on ourselves and we figure out that time as a dimension for our personal brand is not restricted to just our mortal presence on this planet as a human being. Do we agree on that? I don't see that loudly coming. Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Which means that our brands can exist beyond our lifetime. Yes?
Yes.
Which means we need to work more on what is going to be more eternal beyond just what is perceived by the five senses. Which means it has to go beyond our physical presence on this planet, and for that we have to work on building some things. And what is it that we can do? What can we learn from some of the people who've had an everlasting impact on other people because they created that brand, but in a positive way? Remember, we don't want to follow the footpaths of Hitler. We agreed on that, right? There's no ambiguity, there's no gray area, it's a complete black or white. So we want to tread on the path of those people who leave an everlasting impression on all the generations, successive generations, no matter how much time tries to make people forget about them, about their brand, people can't just forget it. Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Which means we've got to focus on something which is not transient, which is not temporary, but rather something which is eternal. Right? For us to build an eternal brand, we've got to understand that every living entity, right from an ant to the most opulent person that we can think of, in that wide spectrum of people that whom we meet, the important thing we need to understand that they go through three challenges. Challenge one is challenges inflicted by their own body and mind. Is there anybody in this room who can tell me has never ever felt diseased? Anybody? Right? We accept that. Number two is challenges inflicted on us by other living entities. A mosquito bites me, oh my God, it's irritating, right? My best friend becomes a foe. It's going to give me a lot of stress, right? And the third challenge is the fury of nature. Extreme cold, heat, humid, or anything to do with floods, famine. Despite these three challenges, no matter whether you're very opulent or you're poverty-stricken, it's up to you of what you want to achieve despite all of these challenges. How you build your brand despite these three challenges, and you have a clear vision on what you want to achieve in your lifetime, and leave an impression which goes beyond our lifetime, is what is our personal brand. Make sense? Great. So, we have to understand that while working on personal brand, there are certain challenges other than these three that I mentioned, which is to understand that despite all of the efforts that we put in building towards a brand, with our intent being clear, with our objective being clear, we also need to understand that there is something called the time, place, and circumstances. Which means that if I was to try and build a brand basis what was prevalent prior to, let's say, the current digital age, and I think that I'm going to distribute leaflets of paper and do mass drop at each house to tell them that, Piyush, you're great as a presenter, I think I'm being unfair to myself and to the current generation of people who just don't care about what comes to them today in the form of paper, but rather what comes to them as referral through the social media works the best for me. So take up what is relevant in the time, place, and circumstance, build your brand. We're all on that journey, and let's wish each other good luck. Thank you very much.